Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard Moglin and welcome back to the Traderline channel. Today in this video, we'll be talking about the 10-week moving average, which is this blue line here on my chart since 2000, and how you can use it effectively if you're an investor, position trader, swing trader, or even a day trader to make sure you're trading with the trend and also trading with the institutions at your back. So overall, going back even and studying stocks all the way back in the 1900s and 2000s, this is a very effective moving average to use. And you can even go back and study William O'Neill's How to Find America's Greatest Opportunities, this document here. And throughout this, you can see example after example of stocks that are under significant institutional accumulation, respecting the 10-week moving average, which on his chart is red here. This is Taser, super powerful run here, respects this all the way up pretty much until the top. Also going down to Qualcomm, you can see all these ads off a 10-week moving average. And one last example, we've got TARO here. Once again, this is the red line, the 10-week moving average, and it respects it pretty much during this entire uptrend as it goes from base to base. So this moving average, going back in history, is really known for being a potential spot of institutional accumulation, an add-on spot in strong stocks and uptrends. And this is true in today's markets. It's true in 2020, 2021, over and over. You'll see the same pattern repeat over and over again. So in this video, I'm going to go through a few different examples from the recent years, talk about how you can use this moving average to stay on top of the trend and also recognize when the trend is over, as we've seen in a few of these former leaders that started in 2020. So first of all, we've got Roku, really nice example. And the 10-week moving average for position traders and investors is especially important coming out of a market correction. Once you get a base breakout like we have here on high volume on Roku, the stock should trend and stay above that moving average for the most part. It may dip below it, but you don't want to see it undercut it too much. And you want to see nice, strong rallies off that moving average during the trend. And that's exactly what we saw from Roku. You can see it find support here and consolidates a bit against the moving average at this point, here. And this bar is the first significant close below it. And then we undercut that week's low. This would be a sell signal. Then we form this late stage base. And then we see it try to find support once again here, but we have basically a base breakout failure, undercut that 10-week once again, and then we see kind of the opposite happen. We see the stock start to trend below a declining 10-week, and even here we get respect here, and here. So when we're in a correction and in a bear market, this can be a spot to put on some shorts as well. So it's useful both in uptrends and downtrends. And even if you're a swing trader, even if you're a day trader, you want to know what the trend is of this moving average and how the stock respects it. Because if the stock respects it, like we see from Roku, most likely institutions are getting involved at those logical spots, and it's just going to kind of yield cleaner entries on any time frame, regardless of your style. So that's why it's so important to stay on top of that trend and know the character of the stock you're trading. Moving on to the top of the list, let's go through each of these names. We've got Coupa Software. This has had a super strong run. You can see it respects a 10-week during this initial run. Then we have a definitive break here and close below that moving average. And during these trends, sometimes we get little dips below. Sometimes it recovers into the end of the week. Sometimes it doesn't, but doesn't get too far below that moving average. And really what you want to look for is a stock to stay in the general vicinity of that moving average. Remember, this is not some magical line. It's just an area of potential support and interest. Here we get it kind of staying right near that moving average, still kind of respecting it. And then once again, respect here. And then we get really choppy, wide and loose, and then really undercut it during the March 2020 correction. And once again, we get a nice trend above it. It doesn't have too much respect for it, but we do get some kind of area, potential support in this area. And then we get really wide and loose. And then we get that changing character, and now it's respecting it to the downside. So that's Coupa Software, a good example of here, all the way from its IPO, respecting that moving average. C Limited, this is a very popular stock. You can see after that 2020 correction, base here and breakout, it found nice respect for this basically all the way up. Then we got pretty choppy in here, lost respect for it. And then even in this final push up here, we're grinding higher above that moving average. And then here is where we get the changing character. We get a definitive close below it, fall through to the downside, undercutting that week's low. And now we're basically shifting to a downtrend and basically trending down and respecting it to the downside. So even when we're a downtrend, this kind of moving average keeps you aware of the overall environment of that particular stock. And here the institutions are selling. Here's where they're accumulating, and we always want to be trading with that trend. Shopify as well. This is a nice institutional leader for many years, and during its strong uptrends, it shows nice respect for this moving average. And here, this is the most clean example after this correction. Super strong trend. Then we do get an undercut and close below that moving average for the first time in quite a while. This is always a character change you want to be on, basically on top of. Then we start another longer term basing process, and then we get that 2020 run. And now we've got that changing character, and it hasn't even been able to rally into that moving average recently, but we do see that downtrending 10-week moving average. NVIDIA, another really good example of super strong respect back here in 2016. Look at how many times it pulls back perfectly to this line and rallies strongly here. And I love how tight it's trading as well here. We get a pullback longer term base into the 30-week, which I might make an entire video about. But here we get another strong breakout, respect for the 10-week, and then we get wire and loose and undercut it here, changing character, longer term basing process. And then from the bottom of the space, we start seeing that respect creep in. Then we get that 2020 correction, which resets things. And then once again, super strong trend, long base, and then additional respect for that 10-week moving average. So definitely a very useful tool to have at your disposal. Peloton as well, you can see after this March 2020 correction, we get a nice push here, respect for that 10-week moving average. And here we do get an undercut and close below it. But look how far this stock rallied off the week's lows. And we never truly kind of live below it because we push up, get just below it, and then kind of grind higher, push back above. And then finally, here's the definitive close below it. And then on this bar, it kind of confirms the weakness. We undercut this week's low, and that's when the trade is kind of over from this breakout. And from this point on, it formed another kind of consolidation, broke down, and started respecting this moving average to the downside. And so far, hasn't been able to push up above that moving average. Tesla as well, another great example within this trend in 2019 as well as 2020. Super nice respect for that general area, and this is a basically hallmark of institutional stocks that are under accumulation. And here's where we get the first close below it and then undercut of that week's low. That starts this longer term basing process. We see the respect for the moving average start to creep back in up the right hand side, nice push upwards, and now we're back below a declining 10-week moving average. So this really keeps you on track of where we are within the life cycle and what is the prevailing trend of the stock. Moving on, we've got Fiverr, another example from 2020. Super strong move here, nice respect back in this area. And you can see we don't really get a close below it until all the way up here, and we don't undercut that week's low. We push up once again, and then we start to see that undercut close below it, and then it forms this longer term base. And now we've shifted to a downtrend below declining 10-week as well as 30-week moving average. Zoom as well, another great example from 2020. A nice push off the lows here, respect for the 10-week here and here. And we don't even get a close below the 10-week moving average until this point. And this week closes really strongly off the lows, and we don't undercut this week's low. So we get another push up, earnings gap up here. And then here we see that changing character closes below the 10-week, and that 10-week moving average starts to slope downwards. And the stock has never really been the same since. So this is a great way to stay on top of where you are within the stock's run and how much the institutions care about accumulating the stock off that 10-week moving average. CrowdStrike, another great example, nice trend off the 10-week moving average area. We see it lose respect here, undercut it, close below it, undercut that week's low. This starts a longer term base. We get another push up, but isn't quite the same and not quite as powerful as this prior move. And now we see it kind of stuck below that moving average, and here is just kind of basing still within that overall chop phase. Roku, we already talked about. You can see that changing character, super strong accumulation here, and then distribution against that 10-week moving average to the downside. Google, a slower mover, also really nice respect back in 2020 to this moving average, and you'll see this over and over again if you take a look at weekly charts. And I would advise anybody, regardless of your time frame, bring up a weekly chart when you're looking at a potential stock to buy, and always be trading with that trend of that moving average. Skills, a more volatile name, but this also shows respect for that 10-week moving average area off here. And you can see that the character really changes when we undercut that moving average, and now we're kind of stuck below it and trending below it. And you can see how we rallied back into it and rebounded back downward from that moving average on multiple occasions. And lastly, we've got InMode, which showed super strong respect for that 10-week moving average, just grinding higher from these lows. You can see this is over 500, 600%, just grinding above that 10-week moving average. We do get a close below here, but look how much it rallies off the week's lows and doesn't undercut that low. And it's not until right here we get a close below it and then undercut that week's lows. And you can see how bad a bar this was. So this is the sell signal if you're entering within this trend. So right now we're below a declining 10-week moving average. So the bias has changed from long to short. So overall, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I think the 10-week is extremely useful. And obviously on a daily chart, we've got the 50-day moving average, which is the equivalent, and institutions love to accumulate shares off those moving averages. So definitely keep an eye on the overall trend of the stock using this moving average, and also especially coming out of an extensive correction, this moving average and the 50-day on a daily chart are great ways to manage positions and stay in that trend, because stocks can double, triple, quadruple coming out of a correction without ever really undercutting this key level. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please go ahead and leave a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.